Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Ridge Community Church podcast. My name is John. I'm one of the pastors on staff at the Ridge, and our vision is to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. So as a piece of that, our goal each week is to bring you something that's hopeful and helpful. So subscribe to this podcast to make sure you don't miss any hopeful and helpful conversations. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Ridge podcast. If you find today's episode hopeful and helpful, then please follow or subscribe, and then rate and review so that more people can find the conversation. And if you're watching on YouTube, then be sure to give us a follow and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any conversations. Now, we're currently in Live Big as a church, and this is our annual season where we really try and put into practice Jesus' words that it's better to give than to receive. And you can find out more about all the things that we're doing at our website, theridgecc.com/livebig. But one of the parts of Live Big that I really enjoy the most is the conversations that we have during this time that really help us understand and expand our perspective and understanding of what other people live like, how they experience life, and how we can just really see them better. You know, our guest today, Aren, experienced that firsthand a few years ago when he participated in a poverty simulator with one of our local partner organizations, City on a Hill. Now, he describes what that experience was like, how it forced him to change his perspective and some of his assumptions, and a lot more. I'll let him share it. But this is my conversation with Aren. Hey, Aren, thanks for coming on to the Ridge podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so, you're in college now, first year of college. How is it going?
It's going good. The adjustment definitely wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, luckily. I'm enjoying kind of having the independence, getting away from my parents a little bit.
We won't tell them you said that. We won't tell them that. Yeah.
Except they're going to watch it, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
They already know that.
Yeah. So,
but
go ahead.
No, I'm having a great time out here. Being away is definitely a new experience, but yeah.
You have like a survival tip, like to somebody that's just about to go to college, or maybe they're in high school right now? Do you have like anything like don't forget this thing?
Make sure you pack enough hangers for your clothes, because the first night I came out here, I had to go run to Walmart and get a bunch of hangers because I did not pack enough for my shirts.
That's a pro tip. Wow, that's good. That's good. All right, second fun college question. What is your go-to, you have to make a run to the convenience store snack? You know, you're like studying, you're like, I need a snack. Like, what is your go-to treat?
They've got these like snack boxes where it's like dip and like crackers and then like grapes and some veggies and stuff. And I really like getting those. They're like super easy snacks.
Wow, dude. So many moms just heard that and like, we are so proud going for the veggie snacks. Like, all right, after this podcast is done, you can tell me you're a real snack. But oh. Well, hey, so as part of Live Big, we've been kind of highlighting some of our local nonprofits, and another thing that we've been doing is we've really been highlighting like this. We want to be super hyper focused on like poverty and what can we do in our community to help alleviate some of that. And I know that when you were part of Ridge Students, you were able to go through the poverty simulator. What is the poverty simulator?
Well, so the poverty simulator, it's a couple of days where you kind of just move away from your normal life, and they put you in this simulation where it's like everything you're used to is kind of just adjusted. I feel like we live in definitely not our homes. And it's but it's just experiencing what it's like to live as someone that, well, they targeted, I think, the inner city of Milwaukee, and to experience what living like that is like.
So what made you decide that you wanted to like do this thing? I'm sure you heard about it. Like, hey, those Ridge Students like, hey, we're talking about this thing. What made you decide, I want to try this out?
Yeah, I don't know. There's my Ridge Students leader, Shelby. She encouraged us to try it, and I don't know. I'm really down to try anything. It looked like a cool learning experience, and it looked like a fun trip, especially to get to know my friends that were going to go with me. Obviously, I don't know. I've done Arctic Blast, which is our church retreat, and that had been really
Yeah.
fun. And I don't know, another church retreat sounded fun as well. So, and it was
Cool.
definitely, I guess, not. It was more of a learning experience, and that was fun, but it was definitely still a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm sure it's very different vibe than Arctic Blast, right?
Yes, yeah.
A little
Arctic
bit
Blast
less.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, very different, very different.
I'm curious. So you hear about this, and I'm sure like people are like, oh, it's gonna be you're gonna be able to be with your friends, which is great, but also like it's called a poverty simulator. So I'm curious, what were your like expectations going into that? Were you like, oh, I kind of think it'll be like this and like that, or like what did you think was gonna happen?
I really didn't know what was going to happen. I guess I didn't have very many expectations. I was assuming I was probably not going to sleep in a nice, comfy bed like I normally would, and I
Yeah.
might not have eaten what I normally do, which
Mm.
was definitely true going into it. But no, I guess I was just kind of expecting to experience just um, like a different, definitely just a different lifestyle than what I was used to.
Mm. So you start, you get there and you start
Yep.
experiencing it. What was that like? I know
Well,
you
so
can't really go into specifics, right? You have
yeah,
to.
yeah, I
Okay.
can't go into specifics. Oh, they asked me not to really tell anyone exactly what happens, but
Yeah.
um, so I don't want to go too in depth just because I would rather encourage you guys, anyone that's listening, to go do the poverty simulation to then know what happens. But
Yeah.
um, gosh, what was the question again?
Yeah. So what was it like? How are you feeling? You start doing it. Like maybe you can paint broad strokes. You can kind of
Yeah,
give us a
yeah,
flyover. Like what was it like, and how did it? How did you feel going through it?
yeah. So I guess going into it, it was kind of jarring a little bit. I guess they kind of just like they told us that we could only grab like a few items of what we packed to go spend the trip week at City on a Hill. Like they said, like just very few items. It was like you got the choice of like maybe you could bring a pillow or you could like sacrifice for other things. Like there was very few things that you could bring along with you of your personal belongings. So
Mm.
then it was kind of when we went into it and just a completely different like adjustment to where we were sleeping for the nights, living, and then like especially like the biggest thing is like what we were eating was really different.
Mm.
So it was very interesting to learn. Here
So
talked about food deserts, um, and that most of Milwaukee or the parts of Milwaukee, poor parts of Milwaukee are a food desert where there's
yeah, what's maybe if
no
like
grocery
people aren't
stores,
familiar with it,
Walmarts, things like that.
what's a food desert?
It's a so they call it food desert is somewhere where there's not, I believe, grocery stores like readily available to them. Like
Mm. Maybe
so
like
they
less fruit,
it's
fresh fruits and stuff like that.
fresh fruits, fresh foods, things like that. And
Mm.
they rely a lot more on like convenience store foods and things like that.
Mm. Gotcha.
So
So you're kind of in a situation where you're kind of eating different foods. You're obviously, I'm sure you're a lot less comfortable than you usually are. Like what?
most
Like how?
definitely.
Yeah, yeah. How are you feeling during that time? Like, was it something that you? Was it like? Was there anything that surprised you? Like what? Like how did that feel?
Yeah, definitely. I think what really surprised me the most is like just what we were eating was very far off what I assume or what I feel like anyone should be eating. Like just the lack of key nutritional parts of like a diet or things like that were just completely missing out of what we were eating for those days.
Mm.
Um, they like we were just eating. Well, it was really just a lot of junk food just because there wasn't access to healthy food in the area that we were. So
Mm. So how do you? So you're like processing that, right? You're experiencing this thing. I'm sure you had to at some point be thinking, okay, this this isn't just a few moments for me, right? This is somebody's day to day. This is like their like this is what how they experience life. Was there like a moment when that hit you?
Yeah, definitely. I think by the end of it, by the end of, I think it was 2 days that I was in the poverty simulation, but by the end of it, it was really eye opening, I would say. Just to realize how different some people's lives can be just from what they have access to. Um, it made really just like, I think the biggest thing that happened was it opened my eyes to how different people can live from what you're used to. And I think it really just made your perspective on open the perspective that the situations people are in is you can't assume something about someone because you don't know their situation. It's the biggest thing
Mm,
I feel like I learned from that poverty simulation. And the biggest thing I also learned is that the people that are in that situation, it's not from a lack of effort, and it's more based off that they just don't have the opportunities to get out of the situation they're in.
mm. Was there anything that you like? Was there a portion of you that you had to like experience that to like kind of understand a little bit better? Like, I wonder if it's even still hard, like even though you've been through that, to really fully still understand.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's probably still hard to fully understand. I think it's a hard thing to understand just how different people's lives in those poor conditions could be from yours. Even just the few days is definitely not probably enough for me to truly understand what they're like going through. You really can't understand what someone's going through unless you're really going through it with them. But the
Mm,
2 days were definitely very eye opening. And it was just a realization of how different what they go through compared to what I have been going through in my
mm.
life.
Yeah, has that like why do you think it's important for people to like understand that? Do you think it affects like how people are treated or thought of? Like I don't know, like obviously it's something that's was meaningful, impactful for you, right? Why do you think that's important?
Yeah, I think it's most definitely important because I guess for you to expand as a person, I feel like you need to understand what other people go through and like to just gain perspective. And to feel like before that poverty simulation, I had been missing a very large amount of perspective on what other people in poorer conditions than I am in are going through.
Mm,
Um, I guess I didn't realize just how hard it could be for them. And I think that I used to think before that there was probably a little bit of a lack of effort in how hard they were trying, but then just seeing what resources and opportunities were just available to these people, um, it was it was really kind of saddening. I'm going to be honest, just going through it, seeing that this is how people have to live, and there's really like they need external help to get out of it. There's no way for them to just work harder to almost get out of it.
mm,
So
yeah, I imagine that's like. Was there an element that changes like your own gratefulness for what you have in the process of
yeah,
that? Like, was it kind of like how did that impact how you view your current life? Really?
I think it made me definitely more grateful just for me being able to see the opportunities that I had that I thought were just normal opportunities for people to have to learn just how not normal it can be for some people
Mm,
and a large amount of people, I would say, just to see the opportunities I had were really, which I think I took as maybe not even opportunities, but like just like access to healthy nutrition, a comfy bed to sleep in, things like that. I think just I would take for granted. It's like I almost wouldn't imagine not having those things could be a
mm,
serious struggle for other people. Um, but so I think that it's definitely opened my eyes to how much of a grateful position I've been put in my life. And it really just makes it like seem that you need to take into account that not everyone's in that position and that you should be really grateful for where you've been put.
mm. When you go through the simulator, maybe you can't answer this question. So if you can't, I give you a pass, right?
Yep.
When you go through the simulator, are you going through it as an adult or as like a student? In terms of are you experiencing like an adult's life? Are you experiencing like a student's life or a kid's life, or what is that?
So if I remember right, they geared it towards like a teenager's life. I guess most of us were teenagers, other than obviously our leaders that were with us there.
Yeah.
So from what I can remember, and this was a couple of years ago for me, it was geared towards a like teenager's life. So if that makes sense.
Yeah. So how did that like? So now you're in a situation where you interact with somebody who's experiencing that, or and this may be a challenging question, like your friends are talking about it or something like that. Has that changed the way you like think about people in those situations? Or you like more like what? How do you feel like it's changed you? I guess.
I think it's really like the biggest word I can say for the whole experience and like the biggest theme of it that I got from it was it's just eye opening. It really like it opens your perspective and it makes it so much wider because you basically feel like you live a part of you get an experience that most of us will never have. And I'm very grateful that most of us don't have to have that experience, but it gives you an experience that I guess you just haven't had. Most of us haven't had before, and it really just opens your eyes to the just greater amount of people that there are, and gives you more perspective, I'd say.
Yeah. So would you encourage people to go through it?
Yes, most definitely. It was tough, but it was a lot of fun going through it with the people I know, my good friends that I know. Going through it with them, it was definitely eye-opening, and it was fun, I would say. Like as much as it's a great learning experience, it's really fun, and I feel like I became much better friends with the people I went into it after coming out of it, just living that experience with them for a couple of days.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know that's almost an interesting, like, I think that's a really good picture of how when you go through challenging circumstances with other people, it almost unites you. You know, like there's that bonding over like, oh man, we can't, where's the veggies? You know what I mean? Like, although maybe some people in the group were like, yes, no veggies, but I won't make you name names. But I do think that there's something too, like you go through something hard with other people and it really is bonding, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would definitely agree.
Okay. So if you had a sales pitch, you had to give a sales pitch to somebody who's listening right now and they're thinking, okay, I've heard about this poverty simulator thing and it kind of sounds like an inconvenience. You know, I don't know if I want to take the time to go through it. Like, what would you be your sales pitch to them?
Yeah, well, it's definitely an inconvenience, I would say. Like,
Yeah.
but
You're starting off strong.
the whole thing's an inconvenience. You're losing a ton of your what you would say normal life, but I would say the inconvenience is where you learn from it, right? Because for what seems like an inconvenience to you is the life of other people. And I think to really understand people more, experiencing what other people have that I guess experiencing what you have get taken away from you and understanding that that's what that there's people that normally live like that, I think is really just the biggest eye-opening thing. And I would highly encourage everyone to have an eye-opening experience like that, just to get a bigger perspective on the world.
Aren, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Thanks for chatting with me about this. I'm sure in some ways it's like, you know, you look back on it and it's like, okay, it's just this moment. It's just this experience that I had. But I love that, like, I love your takeaways. I love that you're thinking through it and you're like, man, I never realized. I really didn't realize what I had. And like that phrase you said, really, like, I didn't realize it was an opportunity. Like, that's a really powerful concept. Like, I love that. I think that's my takeaway from even our conversation is like, what's an opportunity that I have that I think I'm just taking for granted, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, most definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Aren. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for chatting. And for anyone listening, like we'll have some. If you want to sign up to be a part of the Poverty Simulator, we'll have some links in the show notes for how you can get plugged in. You can do that. But thanks, Aren. Thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Well, that was my conversation with Aren, and I really appreciate how he described how he didn't even realize that the things that he had, like access to healthy food, were really opportunities that other people don't get to experience. I think it's so important when we experience or when we hear things like this to allow it to grow our compassion in our heart for people in these circumstances. So take a second and really digest what Aren shared and how that can help your own understanding and your own perspective shift and grow and see your compassion grow as well. Now, if you want to find out more about the organization that hosted the Poverty Simulator, City on a Hill, and how to experience it for yourself, check out the link in the description and the show notes. And to be a part of Live Big, you can find that link in the show notes as well. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ridge Podcast, and make sure to follow and subscribe so that you don't miss any hopeful and helpful conversations.